about what happened at Fortune's Most Powerful Women's Summit in Washington, D.C. yesterday. Meghan Markle was heckled on stage. She was laughed at on stage about both her brand and her life was complete balderdash. And what's so astonishing about this is it wasn't even a big audience. I mean, look at this. From Queer Lips of Truth, who wrote, look at the millions of people that showed up for Meghan Markle's event with Fortune magazine. Empty. But as Meghan Markle pointed out, you can hear the audience laughing. The audience start guffawing. They start laughing because the claims are so fantastical.
So here's the thing nobody saw coming. The highlight reel made it look polished, perfect. Meghan Markle walking on stage, poised and glowing. But honey, the real story? The vibe in that room shifted before she even said a single word. The host gave that over-the-top intro, the kind meant to make everyone clap, but instead of applause...
And she has to listen to that before heading out on stage, knowing that she has a hostile audience because of her lies.
So, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, has held various roles over the years. Actor, Duchess, obviously.
Silence. Just a few polite chuckles, a hesitant ripple across the room. You could feel it. The energy was off before she even took the microphone. People looked around like, are we supposed to clap? Nope. The enthusiasm just wasn't there. It wasn't hate, it was worse, it was indifference. And in a room full of CEOs, journalists, and business leaders, that kind of silence is deafening.
Because it was completely wiped from the official feed because of the response from the audience. And you could see when Meghan sat down, they even laughed.
Then the clips started circulating online, and oh boy, if you know where to listen, the energy change is undeniable. The moment she stepped out, you could almost hear the awkwardness. Meghan Markle walked into a space that was meant for power players, people who'd built empires from scratch. She was there to preach independence and empowerment. But what she ran into? A crowd that just wasn't buying the fantasy. This wasn't royal fanfare, this was the real world. And that room wasn't about to play along. So what really went down at the Fortune Summit? Why did things feel so weird before the Q&A even started? And how did one glossy afternoon on stage turn into a public unraveling of Meghan's entire brand?
So this was a hostile audience because, of course, the people in the audience at this event know that Meghan isn't a founder. That's what got the biggest laugh.
Oh, let's unpack this because it's a ride. Right from the get-go, Meghan was on defense. You could see it in her smile. Too wide, too practiced. She thanked the host, sat down and tried to look relaxed, but the tone was already set. And if you're trying to sell a story about confidence and credibility, the last thing you need is that kind of awkward tension hanging in the air. So she tried to steer it personal. You know, soften the crowd. She went straight into nostalgia mode, nesting and healing. When she walked out, the tension was already palpable.
Nesting and healing, and also, I don't even know I had the bandwidth at that time to think about what the big picture dream was. There was no plan.
Meghan smiled, thanked everyone, took her seat, and then dove into what sounded like a self-care TED Talk. She said, 5 years ago, Archie was so little, I was pregnant with Lilibet, and we were just nesting and healing. She said it twice, nesting and healing. The kind of line that's supposed to sound deep, but instead made the audience shuffle in their seats. Then she said it, the phrase that made everyone blink. There was no plan, no big picture. Just, let's get through these next few years, and the whole room thought, wait, no plan? No plan? That's your business foundation? That's the visionary founder Fortune invited to speak? The irony was too rich.
But this was a flop. This was a disaster. Princess Carparkle pointed out Meghan Markle droned on about nothing for 2 hours. At most, there were 36 people watching.
This was supposed to be a summit about women with massive strategic ideas, the kind of people who built companies from scratch. And here's Meghan, the keynote, admitting she didn't even have a plan. Just vibes. You could practically hear the eye rolls. Then it got worse. She tried to make a joke about it. Most people assume that if I went into business, it would be fashion or beauty. And that's when you hear it, the laughter. Actual laughter rippling through the audience. Because come on, fashion or beauty? Meghan Markle? She's not a designer. She's not an icon. She's known for drama, not for design. That crowd wasn't laughing with her. They were laughing at her. And honestly, who could blame them? Then she went for the relatable mom angle. Those 5 years at home, she said, I wasn't running around in beautiful outfits. I was barefoot in Birkenstocks making Jam cue the silence, then the laughter. Because let's be real, this is the same woman who's photographed weekly in $5,000 coats with a private glam team. Nobody believed it. Nobody.
Says a lot. It was incredibly boring and soul-killing, but she loved listening to herself. So don't worry, I'm not going to force you to watch the whole thing at all.
That barefoot jam maker line was supposed to make her look down to earth. Instead, it made her look like she was playing pretend. The audience laughed again, and this time it stung. They weren't mocking, they were done humoring the illusion. Then came the founder moment. Meghan smiled proudly and said, "Every SKU sold out in under an hour." Our next drop sold out in 4 hours, and people in the room, actual business people, exchanged looks because they knew the truth. If everything sells out instantly, that's not success. That's bad planning. That's underproduction. That's mismanagement. But instead of owning that, Meghan just gave that tight smile and said, "It was a learn, not a lesson." A learn. And the collective cringe could be felt from space. She said it again later. Year one is just a lot of learns. And boom, it became a meme. A lot of learns, because real founders talk about logistics, margins, supply chains, not grace and pivot.
And she was asked about Megxit and spoke about the fact that she just needed so much time to heal herself.
But Meghan, she filled the air with buzzwords that meant nothing. Grace, habits, showing up, learning, no details, no substance, just fluff. It was like listening to an inspirational Instagram caption stretched over 40 minutes. And the people in that audience? They've built empires. They could smell the emptiness a mile away. Then the topic shifted to community. The interviewer asked how she builds community when her brand doesn't even allow public comments. And Meghan's response? Wild. She said, "Well, I don't allow comments to protect my team and supporters." Fair enough. But then she added that her social media manager sends her screenshots of positive posts, and she personally handwrites digital notes on top of them. Yes, you heard that right. She claims she handwrites notes on her phone and sends them back to fans. The room froze. You could practically hear the disbelief. One woman even snorted out loud. Because, come on, does anyone really believe Meghan Markle spends her nights scrolling Instagram and writing handwritten thank yous on screenshots? Please, that's not sincerity. That's delusion. That's the bubble she lives in. A world where every move is curated for optics, not reality. Then came the Netflix question. The interviewer asked the obvious, "What's going on with Netflix?" Meghan's smile tightened instantly. You could see the PR gears turning. She tried to spin it, saying, "We had an overall deal like the Obamas, and now it's evolved into a first-look deal." Translation: Netflix cut the deal down. They pulled the plug after 2 years of nothing and offered her a smaller symbolic arrangement just to keep things polite. But Meghan tried to sell it as an upgrade. She called it an incredible sign of strength in our partnership. Oh, Meghan, that's not a partnership. That's a demotion with lipstick on it. Netflix didn't renew your contract because the content didn't deliver. The docuseries fizzled. The podcast tanked. With love, Meghan flatlined, and everyone in that audience knew it. Then the interviewer went straight for it. "Will we be seeing season 3?" And the mask slipped. Meghan froze, then forced a smile and said, "Well, the holiday special is coming out in November. It's a really good one." Translation: no season 3. With love, Meghan was done. She tried to pivot, rambling about short-form content, quick recipes, 2-minute ideas, but it only made it more obvious. The show was dead, and she was pretending it wasn't. And here she was, Fortune's Female Founder of the Year, pitching jam and canceled shows as empowerment. The irony was just, wow. Then came what might be the most jaw-dropping moment. The interviewer asked, "What have you learned about yourself as a leader?" Meghan smiled and said, "Thank you." It wasn't a compliment. It was a question. The audience blinked, then she continued, "When I was on Suits, that was my last time in a position with a large team." Excuse me? Suits? That was acting, not running a business. She wasn't leading a team, she was reading lines. But somehow in her mind, that counted as CEO experience. The disconnect was stunning. People in the audience looked genuinely confused. And that's when it hit them. She doesn't know the difference between being in something and running something, and the realization spread like wildfire across the room. The interviewer even confirmed that Meghan's team was under 10 people. 10, and when asked how she manages it, she tried to sound all grounded. "I love the creative part, but I still chaperone my child's field trips. Then I run back to meetings, and then the line that killed it. I'm constantly adjusting margins and reviewing profit and loss." Oh, please, anyone who's ever run a business knows that's not how this works. That's just business speak for "I'm winging it." It was buzzword soup, and the audience saw straight through it. Finally, the big headline moment, the interviewer asked, "Financial independence has always been important to you. Why?" Meghan's face lit up. "Financial independence gives you freedom of choice," she said. "There's nothing taboo about talking about independence overall." Vanity Fair had already whispered that she's shopping around for a solo memoir, and this was her first public breadcrumb. Meghan Markle slowly separating her brand from the prince. This wasn't just a business chat, it was a soft launch of her next chapter. By the end of it all, the room was over it. The applause that followed wasn't excitement, it was relief. You could feel people exhale. It wasn't, wow, she inspired us. It was, thank God that's over. The clapping sounded polite, not proud. And behind those forced smiles, ice-cold energy. People who were there later described the vibe in one word, icy. Executives whispered afterward that Meghan seemed robotic, detached, like she was reading cue cards in her mind. One PR director even said, it felt like she was trying to convince herself she's a CEO. When you strip away all the gloss and the glam, what are we left with? American Riviera Orchard, a jam brand that's basically a vanity project, a label built on nostalgia, not numbers. With Love Meghan, a flop that no one's watching. Netflix quietly downgraded her deal. Spotify already said goodbye. So when she walked into the Fortune event a few days later, that tension was already there. People in that audience weren't just reacting to her words, they were reacting to her reputation. Those polite chuckles, those fake smiles. They were the fashion elite watching a once glamorous image crumble. She keeps reaching for this "I'm just like you" vibe, but it doesn't land. She's not like anyone in that room, and deep down, she knows it. And maybe that's why she overcompensates. With quotes about grace, words about healing, speeches about independence, anything to sound real again. But the emotion doesn't match the message. It's hollow. And honestly, that's way worse. Because when people boo you, they still care. But when they stop reacting altogether, when they just politely clap to make it stop, that's when your brand is dead. Being a founder isn't about wearing beige linen and posing with a jar of jam. It's about risk, sweat, late nights, math, failure. It's about showing the ugly side of growth. Real founders talk about margins, cash flow, burn rates, not grace and habits. You don't just decide to be a mogul because your royal title expired. That's not how any of this works. The people at Fortune saw right through it. They weren't laughing out of cruelty, they were laughing out of disbelief. Because the gap between Meghan's world and her words, it's massive. She's talking about empowerment while living in a gated mansion with staff, talking about financial independence while selling jam under a royal-style crest. The contradictions are impossible to ignore. In Hollywood, that's called the moment the audience turns. And at the Fortune Summit in Washington, D.C., that moment came and went, under bright lights, soft applause, and the unmistakable sound of a brand finally running out of magic.